Okay, today is April the 4th, 2021, and today we're here with Claudette Smith, who's running for Mayor of Amarillo. Claudette, welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Let's start off by telling the voters who Claudette Smith is, and then we'll get into why you're running for mayor.
I am 34 years old, and I was born in Dallas, but I moved to Amarillo at about age 5. I've been here ever since, and I love Amarillo. I love Amarillo a lot. I love it because it's not, it's a smaller city. It's not Dallas or Houston or Austin, where what I consider to be a rat race over there. I love it because we're small, we're local, and we have a great community of people that really just love their neighbors and love our small business owners, and everybody takes care of everybody. It's a different culture here almost than it is in all these big cities, and I just love Amarillo. Excuse me. I love its heritage. I love our history, and I just love Amarillo. So I am a small business owner, a paralegal, and I have 2 wonderful children. So I'm a mother of 2. And when I'm not spending time with my family or running my business, I'm spending most of my time fighting for the citizens of Amarillo. I'm fighting for fiscal responsibility, accountability. I go to Austin frequently when they're in session to try to talk to all the legislators and the representatives about, tax issues, just anything that's on the agenda, on the legislative agenda. I try to push for the things that I believe will benefit Amarillo the most. So when I'm not spending time with my family or running my business, that's what I spend most of my time doing.
So did you go to the community college here, or where did you get your education?
I went to Amarillo College, and then I went to WT.
So your business is a paralegal business?
I used to be in the paralegal business. I do freelance every now and then whenever I have time, but lately I haven't had any time to focus on that. I've been pretty busy. We own some escape rooms out off I-27 in McCormick, and so we've been busy building room after room, and it's just been kind of really growing, so that takes a lot of time.
Now, what is an escape room?
It's basically a family entertainment. Families come and they're locked in a room for 60 minutes. They're not actually locked in the room, but each room has its own theme. And like, for example, we have Time Warp Escape the 80s. It's an 80s arcade type situation. It's kind of like, have you ever played the game Clue before?
I believe so, yeah.
It's like a real life game of Clue. So you're having to find all of the clues and hints to figure out the entire backstory of what happened and make your way out of the room.
So you're trying to encourage people to use their deductive reasoning skills.
Yes, it's great for team building, for businesses. We have a lot of Christmas parties and just field trips with students and things like that come out there. It's really great. It's great for team building and working with the people that you're with every day. It helps with that. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, if you like puzzles and riddles and things like that, it's a lot of fun.
Interesting. So what made you decide to run for mayor of Amarillo?
Well, I initially became interested in our local politics due to some ordinance violations that were affecting me directly. So I began attending the council meetings to try to seek some resolve to those issues. But after weeks of attending those meetings with zero resolve, I just couldn't help but notice a plethora of issues that I felt were far more important than my own issues at that time. And so I kind of just stuck around. I stuck around fighting for fiscal responsibility, accountability, transparency. I felt at the time that City Hall, and I still feel the same way, that City Hall was lacking in transparency on a very big level. And I just stuck around fighting for everyone else, and that's what I've been doing ever since. I spend a lot of time fighting for those things and fighting for anything and everything that makes Amarillo better.
So you said you went down there for some ordinance violations. What was that about?
There's some businesses that are behind the house that they're dumping grease all over into the ground, excessive lighting, signage, just a lot of nuisances that could have easily been stopped or prevented when they built those businesses there. And there's a lot of violations of the city code, and that's why it's causing all the nuisances. So I started by calling, going up the chain of command, calling the city departments and talking to all of the people below the department heads, then speaking to the department heads, then speaking to the city manager. I mean, I just went all the way up the chain of command and couldn't get anything done. And so I was talking to some friends about it, and they said, well, why don't you go try talking to the city council? Maybe they can talk to someone and get something accomplished for you. And I thought, well, okay, maybe I'll try that. So they said Councilwoman Elaine Hayes is going to be at a Potter County Republican Party meeting tonight. You should show up there and try to talk to her about it, get her ear and explain what's going on. So we did that, and she suggested coming to the council meetings. She said, yes, come to the council meeting and talk to us, and we'll get with the city manager and see if we can't get, the issues resolved. But when I went, I mean, they just stared at me like I was crazy. They said, okay, thank you for your comments. And I thought, that's it? I mean, I've been through all of this for months and months, and thanks for my comments, And so I thought, well, okay, maybe they're going to talk to them, and then, someone will call me. Mm-hmm. Week went by, no one called me, so I showed up at the next one. Spoke again. I spoke out on the fact that I was upset that I still hadn't received a call about anything. And they just said, okay, thank you for your comments. I mean, just week after week after week, the same thing. Finally, the city attorney at the time called us into the office, and he was very ugly. I mean, threatening us, and he was just very ugly with us. And I was just like, wow. I mean, this is how our city is handling things. I can't get anything accomplished. I mean, I pulled out the entire municipal code and flipped through it, and I would say, this is a violation, this is a violation. They're supposed to have a screening fence. They're supposed to have all these different things that prevent these nuisances when they're abutted up against a residential area. But no one could address my issues. And so here I am. I ran in 2019, and here I am again, and they still haven't fixed the issue. So I wouldn't be here today if they had just addressed that issue the first or second or maybe the third time I came.
Well, that's interesting. So what, as a candidate for mayor, how would you solve that problem?
Well, I would start by trying to begin addressing the issue the first time the person comes to the council. I think there's a lot of things that they could do differently, such as a lot more time per speaker. I mean, especially now that they put the measure on the ballot the last time to reduce the council meetings in half. Now that there will only be half of the council meetings every year, they should be able to allow more time per speaker. I mean, if the city council members and the mayor are only dedicating half the time that they previously were, then we should be able to raise that public comment time. I think that it's necessary that you have department heads. I'm not saying that they always have to attend these meetings, because it depends on the time. Depends on the time that it is, if overtime's involved, if they're salaried. I mean, we always want to do everything the most efficient way possible. But I think that it's good to have some people on hand for issues like that arise, that you can say, department head so-and-so would be happy to step over here with you and talk about that. I mean, and I think another thing that I would suggest is in Houston, in their council meetings, when someone comes to speak at a council meeting, they're able to talk about whatever they want to. They're not stopped. They're not silenced. They're not told we can't talk about this due to the Texas Open Meetings Act or because it's not on the agenda. They have their residents sign up to speak at least 72 hours before the meeting. They put their name and what it is exactly that they want to talk about. And then they're able to talk with the council back and forth and have dialogue about an issue. You know why? Because it's on the agenda. And I've suggested that multiple times, but I get the feeling that this council and this mayor do not want to speak to the citizens. They don't want to hear what you have to say. They do the obligatory 3 minutes, thank you for your time, please don't come back again. And it's very frustrating, because if you look at the organizational chart for the city of Amarillo, the very top The very top person in charge is the Amarillo citizens. But that's not the way it is. That's not the way it is at all. And that's how it should be. We are the people. We pay the taxes. This should be a government by the people.
Well, that's the way our system's supposed to be set up, but people have to participate. And when they don't, then elected officials start to run roughshod over the citizens. That's why I think our local elections, school board, the AC regents, the city council, the mayor, those races, the county commissioners, and all our county elected officials are way more important than our federal representatives.
Absolutely.
Because they're the ones that affect our lives by far the most. Not only that, your vote is like 70,000 times more potent at the local level.
Right.
So, and it's less likely to be stolen by another state. So it's, to me, the people at the local level are just so much more important than any other.
You know, I couldn't agree more. Tip O'Neill once said, all politics is local. And it all starts right here locally. That's always been the case. Mm-hmm. But I think even more so, the message that I took back from President Trump was, go back and take back your local governments first. Go back and do that. Let's start there and build our way back up. I mean, that's the only way to do it. Mm-hmm. And that's what people have to understand. They have to get a fire lit under them, and they have to get out and vote. That's the only way we're going to take back our local governments to start with. Mm-hmm. Let's start there.
Well, in listening to the voters, I've heard a lot of concerns about the different things that the current city council has done, such as, I call it the rain tax, mm-hmm. their drainage fee. Mm-hmm. Now, to me, a fee is something you have a choice in. Right. A tax is something you have to pay. What's your opinion on the drainage fee?
Well, I've said it 100 times probably. It's a tax. It's not a fee. It's mandatory.
It's a property tax.
So it's a tax. I don't agree with it by any means, but I think I'm even more upset probably with the fact that we've been collecting it for nearly a decade. And there's little...
Well, it's about 3 years, I think.
I think hasn't it been nearly a decade? Mm-mm. Well, either way, I mean, we've been collecting it for quite some time, and what have we done with it? What do we have to show for it? What can you see with your own eyes that has been changed? I mean, is the money still there? Is it gone? Have we spent it? If so, what's been repaired? It's a lot of questions I have. The problem is every time I go to ask these questions, I can never get an answer. So then I'll request open records just to investigate it for myself and see where the money went, see what we spent it on. But then I get denied open records requests, nearly all of them. And they state exceptions such as, we're accepted from giving this to you because of credit card numbers or emails or just whatever it is. And I'll say, well, can you not just redact those items and give me the rest of it? Well, you're going to have to file a complaint with the Texas Attorney General. Okay, so fine, I'll do that. Well, then I file a complaint with the Texas Attorney General. And that takes probably 6 to 8 months to get a response from them, especially during COVID, even longer. And even the times that they have ruled in my favor and say, look, yes, you have to give these documents to the public. I'll say, okay, here's the ruling that says you have to give that to me, the opinion that says you have to give it to me. They still won't give it to me. There's a big, big, big lack of transparency at City Hall. There's a lot of issues. I'm not running for all fun and games or for 10 minutes of fame or 2 years of fame. I'm running because no one else is running that I feel is a viable candidate that can do the job right. That's the only reason I stepped up to run. If someone that I felt was viable, that was going to step in there and do the job and do it properly and do it in a conservative way with our money, I would have never ran. I have a business to run. I have children. I have a lot of other obligations, but somebody has got to do it. So I felt led to do it, and that's why I'm here.
Well, a lot of the other thing I hear from voters is the focus on downtown. They put a lot of focus on improving downtown, and I think they made a lot of headway in doing so. But do you think that's important? And then once they do that, they put this parking tax or whatever they call it. You have to pay to park. And a lot of people express to me their concern that that's a tax on those businesses down there because it's a tax on them during the day, but at night for the bars and stuff, they don't have to pay that fee. So where do you stand on all that?
So when I was little, there really wasn't much going on downtown. And then I was working downtown when the revitalization really got going. And we're all proud of that. But it can't just be the big stuff, and it can't just be downtown. We have to spread our focus evenly throughout the city. We have taxpayers all over our city who pay lots of taxes. A lot of my friends pay $6,000 a year on their taxes for their houses, for their homes. It has to be spread out evenly. It really does. I mean, they're all paying taxes. They all deserve services. They all deserve repaired roads. I mean, we have to spread it out evenly. I mean, that's that's the best way I can put it, is to spread it out evenly. As far as the parking is concerned, I don't know why this mayor and council decided to implement that. I thought it was a terrible idea, especially the way that they did it, being Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And the only people that applies to are the people who work downtown. And to add that amount of extra cost to someone who's not used to that, who's still on the same income they've been on, that's a big deal. That's a big deal for somebody in our city who's not making a lot of money.
Well, it discourages people to frequent a business downtown, whereas if they have a business off on Washington or
right
off of that where that is, that then they're not being penalized to frequent that business, but they are penalized to go downtown. That's my perception. And I just think people in the Panhandle resist paid parking.
Right.
It's just
we're
not wired to it that way.
No. We're not used to it. We're not Dallas. We're not Austin. We're not any of these big cities who have the type of income that can absorb that cost. I just, it brings me to another thing I wanted to talk about. It reminded me of when you were talking about that is the entire city block downtown that we have of empty retail space that is taxpayer funded. Mm-hmm. We built with our tax dollars that entire city block of buildings, and it has sat vacant for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And except for one, there was one recently that moved in, but they got an entire year's worth of rent for free. And that was the only reason I think that they took that deal. I don't think that anyone wants to rent from the city. That's already a deterrent. But even if they were to get some sweetheart deal, no one's going to want to lease the building anyhow because their customers will have to pay for parking. So they'll have less customers because I'm not going to go pay for parking, $5 or $10 or whatever it is, to go run inside somewhere really fast or even to stay there for an hour. I'm not going to do it.
I don't think you're unique in that.
I don't think so either.
It just doesn't make sense to me. We don't have a parking problem. If they want to build garages and charge to park in it when there's, a big demand for it, that makes sense. But until then, it doesn't, to me, it just doesn't add up. But, so as mayor, what do you see your role as the mayor?
My role as the mayor
What do you think the mayor's role is probably what I should say.
Well, the mayor's role is to be a conduit between the citizens and your city government. That's the same as the council members. That's their role as well. That's our only job, to be that conduit. We're not there to make all of the tough decisions about everything. That's what we have a city manager for. That's what we have department heads for. And that's what we have all the rest of the city employees for. To bring those things to us and then to be that conduit between the citizens and the city government. So our job is to represent the citizens, to go out into the community and get a feel for what is wanted, what is needed, what's most important, what are people struggling with, what problems do we need to solve, and bring that back to the dais and discuss with the city manager, department heads, etc., and make the decisions. That's their job. We don't elect representatives in any capacity because they know what's best, or because we think that they know what's best for us. We do it so that they can represent our best interest in what we want, so that they will come and listen to us and take that back in making their decisions.
Yeah, my understanding of how city council works is, you're right, the city council and the mayor are the liaison between the citizens and the city manager, but they basically have one employee, which is the city manager. So the council's job is to oversee, to hire, and to hold accountable the city manager.
Right. And I think there's a lot of confusion about that. I have a lot of people out on the campaign trail that say, well, our current mayor, in our council, it's not their fault because the city manager, he just does whatever he wants, and this is just his ideas and his plans. And I just look at him and I say, you see this organizational chart right here? Amarillo citizens, mayor and council, city manager. The mayor and council are above the city manager. They instruct the city manager what to do. Right. So whatever you feel is going wrong in our city right now, as far as the decision making, the voting on things, the raising of taxes, the streets, all of these different things, that's all put back on the mayor and council, because they are charged with being over the city manager, who instructs everyone else to do all of these things. So, yeah, a lot of people misunderstand that, but that's how our city government is set up. That's how our charter is set up, and that's how things are ran. That's how they're supposed to be ran, but they're not. Yeah,
the individual voter has the power. He can bring things, or she can bring things to the council and make it happen. Right. And the most important thing is, of course, to vote.
Absolutely.
If you don't vote, then you're kind of out. You've made a decision that you don't want to be involved or have a say.
I tell people that all the time. I say, well, don't come to me and complain, because I'm going to check the voter record. I'm going to see if you voted, because if you didn't vote, you can't complain. You can't complain about who your representation is if you didn't get out and vote.
That's right. As a county chair, I judge people by whether or not they voted, and as a landlord, I judge people by when they pay their rent. So life is pretty simple. But where do you see Amarillo in 10 years?
I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. I've hoped that we've grown a lot in 10 years. I hope that we've become more efficient. I hope we are able to advance like a lot of these other cities are, as far as technology and things like that are concerned. I don't want us to grow too much too fast. I think a lot of the things that we do right now, we base a lot of the decision making on the budget and things like that, as though we are Dallas or Austin, and we're not quite that yet. But we do need to grow. We just can't spend our budget as though we are already as big as Dallas or Austin or Houston. So I hope that we grow a lot. I hope we add hundreds, thousands. I hope in 10 years, I hope it's thousands of jobs that we've added. I hope we're able to lower our crime rate and our our business and our family taxes, so that we can attract people to move here. And I hope that our population grows a tremendous amount. And I hope that I hope we see a big change. I hope we see a big change physically, and I mean just overall. I hope it's great again.
One of the things I've heard that the city is looking at is providing and installing their own broadband service throughout the city. Mm-hmm. Because apparently the concern is that there's some neighborhoods that aren't being served by broadband. What's your opinion on that? Are you familiar with that proposal?
Yes, I am. Well, it's being presented to everyone as though it's free, but nothing's free. We all know that. It's going to cost someone. Someone's going to have to pay for it. Someone, probably the taxpayers, because that's who the burden eventually always falls back on. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it for several different reasons. we need to focus. We've got to get back to the basics. We've got to stop spending money on items that are not the role of city government. We've gotten ourselves into a big hole by doing that. We've got to get out of the real estate business, the retail business, the hotel business. We've got to get out of those businesses and back to the basics. Back to fixing our roads, back to items that are the role of city government. And so internet is not a basic right, as my opponent says. It's not a basic right. It's not the role of city government. I don't believe that the city government has any business being in the internet business or being in competition with any other businesses for that matter. We, the citizens, and our taxes make up our city government. So we shouldn't be using those tax dollars to hurt our local businesses or to be in competition with other businesses. That's not the way it should be at all. So I disagree with it. I understand that there are families out there that during this pandemic there was issues because we had the schooling from home, the online schooling for a little bit. Things happen. I mean, sometimes there's fluid situations and no one knows what they're going to do and we don't know what to expect. And this pandemic, we all know it can arise again at any given time. I think one of the bigger problems is that a lot of the citizens in Amarillo are forgetful. They forget very quickly what happened. People need to remember that, especially for this election, because who do they want governing their city if another pandemic button were to be pressed and arise again? Who do they want running their city? Who do they want charged with making those decisions on how we're going to handle those things? I'm not just talking about vaccines. I'm talking about the shutdown of local businesses, the masks, all of it. Who do they want? Because that could happen again at any time. We don't know what's going to happen. It's so important that people think about those things and take the time, 5-10 minutes to go to the polls and vote. It's very important. But back to the internet situation. No, I disagree with it. I understand there are families that do need that for that situation, but we have federal funds that help them with that. We have other programs outside of taking from our local tax dollars to handle that. We do not need broadband internet across the entire city. Another issue I think I have with it is they've proposed cameras all throughout the city to monitor for illegal dumping. Dumping.
That's probably why they want the broadband, because they want to set up
Precisely.
surveillance and other things.
And I think it causes a huge privacy issue. I mean, I could go on for days about that, but I'll spare you. I mean, there's a lot of privacy issues involved in there. I mean, can you imagine? Could you imagine if your internet was run across that, where the city could tap in any given time, and see what you're doing? People think everything when it says free on it is a good idea. No, there's always a catch.
Yeah. What are they going to do with the data? They're going to sell your data. You know, there's all kinds of issues. And how are you going to maintain it? I mean, you're going to create a whole new bureaucracy that AT&T and private business already has.
Right.
To me, it would make more sense if they have an issue with no internet service in some part of town, which I don't think there is.
Not within the city limits, to my knowledge.
But they claim there is. I guess we have internet deserts, like we have supposedly food deserts. So I think if the public knew where those internet deserts were, you might get a lot of people wanting to move into those areas.
Potentially.
I wouldn't mind being around where we didn't have internet. So hadn't thought about it, but that's actually an interesting concept. You know, you could get real estate values higher where there is no internet, where you could be left alone, not be bombarded with text messages and emails.
Right.
Maybe they could make those safe zones or something. I don't know. But I don't know. That just struck me when I heard about that. I thought, wow, that's crazy. But they're talking about it, and they're taking it serious.
I think a lot of times when any elected official on any given level, I think if they feel that they have done something wrong, or they feel that they haven't been so successful in their endeavors in representing a city or a state or whatever it may be, I think they take a grasp at straws towards the end and make a lot of promises that they know they can't keep, or something that they think will entice people to come out and vote for them. And I think that that's exactly what this was. I think they have every intention of doing it, but for an ulterior motive. But I think as far as the way that it was presented to the voters, I think it was something to entice people to come out and vote for them. But if you really go call the city and you question them about it, they'll tell you, well, if you go over a certain amount, so say your kids are back there watching YouTube or whatever it may be, and you go over this allotted data usage, you're going to get a bill. So it could be another way that they think that they're going to generate revenue.
Well, I just don't believe cities should be in business.
I don't either.
They should stick to the basics. Provide for the infrastructure, provide for the water, and anything that can be privatized and subbed out to private companies should be.
Absolutely.
Because you want the fewest number of employees you can possibly have. I mean, I don't understand why they don't. I've mentioned for years to the previous city manager, and I think they wanted to put me in the pavilion, but I think it would work. But I said, why don't you just try an area and just, why do you punish people for taking trash to the dump and charge them? You charge businesses, or if I own rent property or I own a business, I have to pay to haul stuff to the dump. That stuff's going to end up in your dump.
Right.
Why don't you pay people $10 a ton to bring their trash to the dump?
Right.
Pay them. You'd have the cleanest town in America in 30 days, and it would save the city a fortune.
Right.
If you're concerned about too narrow of an alley or scared to pick up the trash, why don't you sub it out to, you've got private companies, you got Republic, you got Waste Wranglers, you got Garbage Gators and other companies out there that will be happy to pick up the trash for the city. And most commercial customers, or a lot of commercial customers, use private trash people. You don't have to use the city. I use a private company that picks up my trash. I don't use the city. And you could take the parks, there's 80 some parks. Well, turn each park over to a separate landscape company and let them handle it. If you got plumbing situations, farm it out to all the plumbing companies by precinct or area and let them handle it, and let the city just oversee and make sure they're doing it properly.
Right.
I think that would save the city a fortune. Why does the city want to sharpen mower blades all day?
Well, as far as the trash is concerned, solid waste is a very lucrative business, and it appears to me that our city has been being ran more like a business, like a for-profit business for many years. And so I think that that's where a lot of these genius, not so genius ideas come from regarding sanitation, solid waste.
Yeah.
Is to generate that revenue.
Your water and sewer pretty much needs to be run by the city because you've got such a big distribution system. But when you get beyond that, stuff that you can see up on top of the ground, I have a water and sewer system because I know a little bit about it, and of course I have a trash system too, but I sub it out because I don't want to have to maintain the equipment, right? It's cheaper to let them do it because they can do it at scale.
Right.
I don't see that the city's probably saving any money, but they could still bill it out and make a spread on it. They could make a 10% profit on it, and the private businesses are going to be able to do it much cheaper. And I think it would be cheaper for the citizens, and the city would make more money. I mean, that's just a simple idea. I don't know. I'm sure that no city would want to do that, but it shouldn't be about money. It should be about serving the citizens the most cost-effective way possible, and focus on the things that matter, which is the streets and the infrastructure.
Absolutely.
I mean, but I think if you did think outside the box a little bit and did some things like pay people to take, you wouldn't have trash in the alleys.
Right.
But these contractors, whoever is dumping stuff in the alleys because the city's charging them to take it out there.
Right.
So,
Well, and I mean, a lot of people really, not everyone has a truck that they can throw branches and all these different things in.
well, that's the purpose of the alley.
Right.
That's where you need to be putting your stuff if you can't get it out there. And then that's what we're paying city services for.
Right.
But what I'm saying is it wouldn't get dumped in the alleys if they were paid to take it out there, is what I think. But you could try it in a small area and see what happened. If it doesn't work, maybe it's a bad idea. But you could try it in Eastridge or somewhere for a month and say, if you live in this area, we pay you $10 a ton or whatever the price might be. It might need to be more, but it would save so much money by not having to have the equipment to go pick it up and take it out there.
Right. It's an idea. I mean, no one really knows what's going to work until we actually try it. And that's something that we need to get more involved in is taking ideas like that from citizens just like you.
The citizens have the ideas.
That's
The
right.
people have the good ideas. If
They
you'll
really
listen
do.
to them, they'll give it to
Really
you.
do.
Yeah.
If you're willing to listen.
Now, the other thing you mentioned was crime,
Mm-hmm.
that you're interested in public safety. What do you think? Has crime gotten worse in Amarillo?
I mean, in my opinion, I think it has. I think that the numbers that the mayor and council present, first of all, let me just say, recently they tried to say something about it. Our crime rate, is that it decreased. But they were preliminary numbers, so we really don't know the actual number, and it was by a fraction. I disagree with that. I don't think that that's the case at all. I think with COVID hitting and people having less things to do and not working, a lot of unemployment going on and things like that, there's been a lot more time on people's hands to commit crimes. There's also been a lot less income for people, a lot of people struggling, a lot of the people that commit crimes like that struggling and getting desperate and doing desperate things. I think our crime rate has gone up. I mean, from the things that I've seen, and I'm all over town all the time. I talk to people all the time. Just, let's see, it was like about a week or two ago. I saw a post where a guy in broad daylight at the Brahms on Western, ran across the street in front of all the traffic. Someone filmed it, and he just went over there to two cars and just smashed in the windows and grabbed a bunch of stuff, went to the next car, smashed in the window, grabbed a bunch of stuff, and ran all the way across Western in front of all those cars in broad daylight. And I thought, oh my goodness, I mean, it's things like that are just happening all the time. A lot of car break-ins, a lot of home break-ins, a lot of home invasions. I mean, a lot of things that the news doesn't report on. A lot of deaths, a lot of shootings, a lot of things that the news doesn't necessarily report on, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if we're trying to keep those things from the public so that they're not afraid, or, I don't know. I have my own opinion about media. I think it's all driven to whatever agenda they want people to believe or see. They're going to show you exactly what it is they want you to see and believe. So, I mean, I know I see things in the community all the time that are not on the news. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Of course, I don't have time to watch the news anymore. I don't ever watch it. I probably haven't seen it in years. I figure if it's something important happens, somebody's going to tell me.
Mm-hmm. I know what you mean.
So I kind of just shut it all out. And so much of it is not about local news. It's all national. They're just aggregating the national news and playing the same stories. So what's the point of watching it? It's not local anymore. I think if the newspaper and the news channels actually focused on local stories, people would watch it or read it, but they don't.
Potentially. I mean, I canceled my cable back in 2016, so I don't watch the news on TV, but I rely on the news through Facebook, and I don't follow the news pages. So if I want to know what's going on, I'll go to that page and see. But I do it intentionally because I kind of feel like they're brainwashing us to a degree. Mm-hmm. And you're right. A lot of the stories that I see are not even about local news. And I always think that, and sometimes I'll even comment on there and say, why don't you guys report on the local stuff and worry about what we're doing right here? That's why you're here.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity for somebody that wanted to do that. But it's a lot of work, and it would cost a lot of money to hire competent reporters that could write a story or report the news and not their opinion.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it because I'd slant everything.
I know. Well,
so
I feel on a local level and on a national level, a lot of the journalism has really just turned into nothing but activism.
Yeah.
It's very one-sided and very how they want you to see it, and that's one reason I don't follow. I mean, there's a lot of independent organizations I don't even follow anymore. I mean, that I thought were very reliable and trustworthy at one point. It's turned into something that's totally activism, and it's all one-sided, lopsided, very biased, and I don't like it. So I only check the news when I want to really know, or if someone even tells me, someone comes to me and tells me, oh, or I'll run across a video like that on Facebook. They're not a news reporter, but they're like, look at this guy, And I'm like, wow, oh my gosh. And they say, did you hear the gunshots down on San Jacinto on 6th Street last night? That's how I get my news.
I guess we had 3 murders here in the last week.
Yeah, it's getting pretty bad, and we're short a lot of police officers right now. And I noticed that my opponent and the council members are touting and sending out mailers and things like that to the citizens of Amarillo, really misleading them. They're telling them we've raised the police budget, we've kept your tax rate low. Okay, they did raise the police budget, but they never actually filled those positions. So that was a long time ago. That was years ago. And we're still short police officers. None of those positions have been filled. Not to mention, our firefighters. Our firefighters are also struggling. During COVID, when times were bad, a lot of the firefighters got sick with COVID. So they had to have a bunch of guys running overtime, and they could barely even do that with the budget that they had. They had to, in their words, brown out some trucks, for a while. And meanwhile, the city's down here spending $10 million on abandoned buildings downtown on hopes and dreams that the taxpayers were going to pass a $275 million bond to build a new civic center because they just knew that that's what everyone wanted, even though they didn't listen to us, because if they had, they would have never put that on the ballot, especially during a pandemic. So that's concerning. It's concerning that we're not taking care of the basics. I get upset about these things because I'm so passionate about it. It's upsetting that we're not taking care of the basics. We're not taking care of our public safety. We're not ensuring we have enough police officers and firefighters on the ground to take care of our citizens. We're not ensuring that every city in our street is a safe one. That's the primary duty of any mayor of any city, is to ensure that the adequate services, the adequate core services are taken care of. And we're not doing that here. We're worried about revitalizing downtown and purchasing buildings that are worth, we purchased buildings downtown for $10 million, that the appraised value of those buildings total was $1 million. The citizens said, no, we do not want a civic center right now. We do not want a civic center at that astronomical price. So now we're stuck with all these buildings that we paid $10 million of our tax dollars for, that are worth probably now less than $1 million. And that's a problem. It's a really big problem, because what are we going to do now with all those buildings, now that we're not building a civic center right now? And we don't know when we will be. We're going to sit on those buildings, and there goes all those tax dollars. The city received millions of CARES Act funds. And instead of allocating that to our firefighters, we spend it on buildings downtown.
Well, I guess they want to build a new city hall. Are they still planning on doing that?
I have no idea. I don't think anyone really has an idea. No one knows until they come to the council, and then they don't talk about anything. They just say, Mayor, I motion to approve, and it's a 5-0 vote. Nothing's really ever discussed in depth. The citizens are never really asked, what is it that you guys want? The only time we're asked is when it's put on a ballot, and we're like, well, wait, what's the details? Where did this come from? How did you guys come to this figure?
I would think with technology, and I've seen it in my business, I've been able to reduce accounting clerks and things like that because of technology. Most of the city employees I mean, I would think you'd be able to, through attrition, be able to reduce the number of employees. So you need less space over time through efficiencies and use of technology. So to me, we should have our city hall should be half the size it is. But they're not, I don't know that. I just have a different perception.
No, I mean, I agree with you.
The tendency for government is to grow when, in fact, the opposite should occur.
No, I'm all for less government.
I'm talking about the natural order of things. If people don't stop it,
right,
it's going to get bigger.
Right.
Things get fat until they die. Just like people, we tend to get fat and then we die. Yep. Hogs get slaughtered, pigs get fat.
I was about to say that. You finished my sentence.
But it's just the federal government, state government, local governments. If unchecked, that's what happens.
Absolutely.
But we need to check it.
And that's what I've been doing.
Let's be very efficient with our money.
Right. And I think efficiency is important. I think that there's so much technology out there today that we could do so many different things at the city. I mean, just an example, there's software that's already out there, but there can be software made specifically for our city that really doesn't cost that much money, that would make things so much easier. Like when these the solid waste people are driving down the road, they're on their route doing their thing, they can have a little deal built in right there where they just press a button on the map. Bulk items here to pick up. This or that's going on, whatever. Pothole here in this road. I mean, could you imagine just with the press of a button how much, and it would send something to that department, a signal, and they would have the exact coordinates of where that was, and they would know right away, put that on their route for the next day or for that same day if they're near that. I mean, there's so much stuff we can do to make it more efficient that we're not doing because we're worried about revitalizing downtown.
Yeah, we could basically do that with my property management software.
Baseball is great. I'm not a huge fan of baseball, but I don't hate it. I was not happy with the decision to put the baseball stadium downtown, to build one with tax dollars by any means. I thought it needed to be something that was a private deal and funded with private dollars.
Well, I think their argument there is going to be say, well, we didn't use tax dollars. We used the hotel tax funds, not property tax.
Okay. Well, we can argue that all day long, but at the end of the day, did your taxes go up? Did your property taxes go up after the ballpark? They did.
Yeah, mine went up
4 times. Yeah. 4 increases, okay? Your taxes went up. Your water bill went up. Your drainage fee went up. We're paying for it one way or the other.
Well, I tried to explain to those people. I said, okay, if you have all this hotel tax going into the general fund and you take that out and put it over here to pay for this, what's going to fill that hole?
To robbing Peter to pay Paul is what's happening.
But they could never make the connection. Well, it's not property taxes that's paying for it.
Well,
it's all going into the same pot, and you pull that sector out, then you're going to have to raise the other to fill the void.
Mm-hmm. And that bothers me so much. Politicians, just in general, they'll say something and they'll keep repeating it until it's drilled in your head, and then you believe it. And that's exactly what's happened here. Our mayor, she's got up there with her marker and her whiteboard and said, this is how we're paying for the ballpark. It's not with your money. You're not paying. In fact, you guys aren't paying a single dime for it. We're paying out of the HOT tax. And now that's what everybody's out there saying. Well, it's not being paid for with that. Okay, do you write the check for your taxes? Has your tax bill been more every time?
Yeah, I pay
paying for it.
$365,000 a year in property taxes. It's sickening.
I bet it is.
They take every dime, any bit of what you think is going to be profit, and then they take it.
I know. It's really sad, and especially when you don't have the representation in return for it. You don't have the services that are promised. Your roads are in bad shape. Public safety is lacking. There's crime all over the place because we're lacking in public safety. I mean, I was listening to the scanner a few weeks ago. Do we have any units? We need more units. No one's here. Sorry. No, we do not have any available units. We do not have anybody that can respond. That's a problem. That's a big problem. I don't care if you pay taxes like property taxes or not. Do you want to be safe? Do you want to be safe inside your home at night?
Well,
You wanna
everybody's
know that-
paying property taxes, even if they're a renter. They're paying that in their rent.
Precisely.
Everything rolls down to the very lowest wage earner. So everybody's paying.
Yeah, and if not, you're still paying sales tax. I mean,
To me, property tax is one of the most regressive taxes there is.
Yeah.
Actually, I have an idea on how to get rid of it. But
good.
I'll leave that for.
If I'm elected, you better have a presence at the council meeting so you can bring these ideas to the table, because we don't have all the ideas. We're just 5 people up there. We do not have all the ideas. There's no way any of us could know what's best for the other 200,000 people in this
There's a
city.
simple way to get rid of property taxes. Everybody will love it, and it'll bring in more money. Simple. And then you would own your property.
Good. I think that would be amazing. I think it would be
So
amazing.
simple. Most things are very simple. Just nobody has the courage to implement them.
I know.
So what's your feeling on the other big topic that people talk about is the homeless situation? What do you think about how to solve that issue?
I don't know that homelessness is ever going to be solved, Dan. I mean, there's a lot of homeless out there that actually want to remain homeless. They don't want to be housed. These are issues that have been seeded long ago. They're issues that were caused by something or another that happened to that person in their life, whether it be addiction to drugs, alcohol, child abuse, whatever it was. Something in their past led them to where they were or where they are today. And so I think going forward, we can do what we can as a city government to be proactive in, our mental health, just whatever it is that we can do along those lines to be proactive rather than reactive to the situation. A lot of people make a big deal about the homeless. They say, well, the homeless is walking around everywhere. A lot of people are kind of ugly about the situation. They say, we don't want all these panhandlers and all these homeless people walking around the streets. What are you going to do about that? And then you have the people that are compassionate. We can be compassionate, but we can be firm at the same time. There are plenty of cities out there in Texas and in all states all over that are handling the situation, and they're doing it, and they're making huge strides. We can take models that other cities are doing and look around and see, what are they doing? What's working here? Mm-hmm. I've heard recently, I haven't looked into it really hard, but I think it was, I don't know if it was Corpus Christi or where I saw it, but they were doing something and it was really working.
San Antonio's done a good job. St. Petersburg, Florida has done some really amazing things.
I mean, I've heard complaints from all over the city from both sides of the spectrum, but that's what it's going to take. I don't have all the answers for it, and I'm telling you right now, there's no elected official that will ever have all the answers, because it's never going to be fully solved. But we can do what we can within our means to try to help be proactive and to handle the situation that we have at hand right now. I don't know exactly what that is yet, but once I get elected, once I am elected and I'm in there, we can explore those options based on citizens coming forward, departments coming forward, exploring what other cities comparable to us are doing, and do what we can. That's all we can do. But it's definitely something that I am willing to face head on and listen to all the citizens and all of the department heads and organizations, anyone who wants to come forth with their ideas. I am so opening to listening to that and actually doing something about it. Not just talking about it and saying, gee, thanks for your comments. We'll see you again next time. I'm willing to step up and do the job, whatever that takes. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm willing to do it.
Well, I think there's some simple things that you can do to minimize it. Most of it stems from shutting down the state mental hospitals. Ann Richards did that back in the, I guess, early 90s. And we're still paying for it because people wanted to be compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
And so they dump them out on the street and let them freeze to death.
Mm-hmm.
So some people just aren't capable of taking care of themselves. They got mental problems. Right. But there's ways that can be done. We did a study on it, my wife and I, years ago, and she came up with she pulled all the data that worked from all these different cities, proposed it to the city, But then they took it and gave it to these homeless advocacy groups.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what happened then, because most of those homeless advocacy groups have a vested interest in homelessness.
Right.
That's how they make their money, because they're getting grants, and that's how they're making a living.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem. So they're almost creating the problem. And but to me, you still got to make people follow the rules. You don't let people run out in the street and panhandle. Right. To me, there ought to be an ordinance that finds the citizen that gives them money in an intersection, because that's dangerous. That's baiting that person into the street and putting their life at risk. Somebody's going to run over one, and they have run over them. So I just think it's dangerous for the motorist, and it's dangerous for the homeless person. So to me, the people giving them the money ought to be held accountable. But
I mean, I don't know.
If you want to go help them, go park your car, get out of it, and go talk to them and give them a job.
Okay, fair enough.
Or give them $100. I don't care, but don't do it in an intersection. The light turns green. People aren't, there's a truck in front of them. They don't see it. They take off. Splat goes the bum.
Uh-huh. Fair enough. That makes sense.
But there's just, most things aren't that complicated, but just nobody wants to take up the issue. Mm-hmm. Another big thing, pet peeve of mine, and they found that this worked really well in a lot of places. I think San Antonio did it. It might have been St. Petersburg, Florida, but they changed trespassing to a Class C misdemeanor, because trespassing is a state crime. It costs the counties a fortune. Mm-hmm. You got to impanel a jury. It's an expensive proposition to go through a trial for trespassing. They know this. Mm-hmm. The homeless people know this. They're going to trespass on the people's property and do whatever they want to do. If it's a vacant building or something, there's no consequence, because they know they're not going to get prosecuted. So if you'll just change trespassing within the city limits to a Class C misdemeanor, then they can give them a ticket. Then they have to go down to municipal court. If they don't show up, there's a warrant, and they don't want a warrant on them. They're going to the next town. They're gone. And they stop getting on people's private property because they don't want that ticket. Gotcha. That's worse, because it's a simple crime, and because they don't want to have to deal with it. So sometimes you just got to figure out what works and then do it. Mm-hmm. But I think that'd be very effective and solve a lot of problems. But what else would you like to tell the voters about you and what you plan on doing to solve all the inequities you think we have in Amarillo?
Well, I mean, I think if you don't like what you have right now, if you don't like what you see or that you've seen over the past 4 years, then it's important that you get out and vote. And I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but I think that the most qualified person that'll be on the ballot to do the mayoral job is myself. I think that I've been around for the past 5 years. I mean, I've been in Amarillo pretty much my whole life, but I've been heavily involved in our local politics for the past 5 years. I have a very good understanding of how things operate within our city. I have a very good understanding of the issues that are affecting our community because of my relationship with business owners and families throughout our city, because of the time that I've spent talking to all of these people and going to businesses and visiting with just anybody, even in a store, gas station, gas pump, you name it. I've been doing this for the past 5 years. I have a very good grasp of the issues that are affecting our city. I may not have all the answers or all of the solutions, but I have a lot of good ideas and solution proposals. That doesn't mean that it's what's necessarily best. At the end of the day, I want to ensure that the citizens have the representation that they need, that they deserve. I feel that elected officials work for the people, not the other way around. And that's why I'm running, because I want to bring that selfless service back to the citizens of Amarillo. So at the end of the day, that's what's most important to me. The people, the citizens of Amarillo, the taxpayers, and fulfilling their wants and needs. They're the ones who are paying the taxes. So if you don't like what you've seen for the past 4 years, if you think your taxes are too high, don't listen to those fancy mailers that you get in the mail. Don't listen to what's posted on social media. And don't even listen to what the politicians say. Don't be convinced by that. At the end of the day, when you have to get out your pocketbook and you have to write that check for your taxes, do you feel in your gut that your taxes are too much? Is your tax bill higher than it was the last time you wrote the check? That's the truth at the end of the day. They can pick apart all of these numbers and say, well, we've raised the budget for police officers. We've kept your taxes low. Go ask the department head. Go ask the police chief. Are you short on staff? When's the last time that these positions were filled? Did they raise the budget? Did they actually fill those positions? I mean, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is when you're writing that check every single year for your taxes. Don't worry about what mailers say and what these politicians come out and with their well-polished speeches and whatnot. Don't worry about that. Worry about what you can see with your own eyes and what you've experienced. If you feel it in your gut, if you see it with your eyes and you don't like it, vote for someone else. Vote for new representation. Vote for the change that we need and the voice that we deserve. That's what I would say.
So what do you think about the other thing that I hear from voters? It's a big issue, is a lot of people are upset about the mask mandate and the fines that they were going to instill on business owners who had somebody in their business that didn't wear a mask. Do you think that was the right path for the city to take, or
are you referring to the governor's orders, or are you referring to what our city leaders did in addition to those governor's orders?
I'm referring to what the city did in addition.
Okay. So to clarify, we
don't have any control what the governor did.
Right. So
yet
our current elected officials, they will say things like, well, we were just, abiding by the governor's mandate. That's actually really not, it's a non-law. It's really not a law. They'll blame it on the governor.
Right.
They'll kick the can down the road on that. But the fact of the matter is they called their own emergency meetings to vote to fine businesses who were not requiring their customers to wear masks. And I feel overall, from the state level all the way to here was absolutely completely wrong. We were already in the middle of a pandemic. People were already scared. They already weren't going out. These businesses were already suffering. And then you're going to try to implement a fine. We're not, as business owners, we are not the law. It is not our duty to enforce the mask wearing. If a private business wants to say, okay, I am an older person and I'm at risk and I don't want to be around people who are not wearing a mask, but I still have to operate my business. Well, that is your discretion. We need less government. We need the government to stop stepping in. Mm-hmm. The government overstepped its boundaries when it decided to protect us from ourselves. Period. End of story.
If they can do that, what else can they do? Where does it stop?
Exactly. We are grown people. The government is there to give you the guidelines as far as, a pandemic or a virus or anything that's harmful to your health and safety is concerned. They can give their guidelines as to what they know about that virus, how to prevent the spread, et cetera, et cetera. They give you the guidelines and you do with it what you will. We do not need more government. We do not need the government telling us how to protect ourselves from ourselves, or stepping in, not telling us, but stepping in and trying to protect us from ourselves. We don't need that. We don't need that.
The government should be there as an information source to help the citizens if they ask for it or need it.
Right.
And say, here's what we know. It's a virus.
Right.
Here's what we think you should do to protect yourself.
Absolutely.
We trust you as the citizens to make the best decision for your situation.
Right. And that's the way it should be.
Take your vitamin C and your D and zinc and get on down the road.
Right. And that's the way it should be. That's the way it should have been.
I would think that there would be some potential repercussions if an elected official starts giving medical advice and they're not a licensed medical practitioner, wouldn't they or couldn't they potentially face liability issues?
I mean, from my opinion, yes, I would say so. I also don't like how those medical personnel that they use to make those decisions are hand selected, because I think it's all driven by a certain person or a certain group of people's agenda or their beliefs on the matter.
Yeah.
Rather
They're
than
not elected.
with the health officials, no.
Right.
So, I mean, I just think that that's absolutely wrong. They handpick those people based on their own beliefs on how things should be handled, and they're pushed to say certain things and to give their recommendations a certain way so that they can do whatever it is that they feel is necessary. And man, I'm telling you, I was just really upset about that they were trying to find the small businesses for that, or any business. I don't care if it's even a big business.
Well, they allowed the big businesses to stay open, but they shut down
Right.
the smaller businesses and they shut down the churches, which makes no sense to me. I mean, if they believe in God, why don't they believe he'll take care of them?
Mm-hmm. Our God is bigger than
So
any COVID-19.
why would they even worry about it?
Right. Our God is way bigger than any.
So they must not have much
COVID-19.
faith, right?
Right. You're right about that. I think what was even more disappointing in that with our local leadership is that our mayor actually sent a letter to all of our churches, in addition to all of this, telling them that they needed to wear masks or have services online.
Well, to me, I would say we all need to go to church and ask God to protect us.
That's right.
And if you believe it, it will happen.
That's right. That's right.
So I'm perplexed by people's thought process.
Right. So, I mean, as we both know, this pandemic could arise at any given time.
But what is the definition of a pandemic?
It's whatever the media construes it to be, in my
Well, the official
opinion.
definition is a disease which causes 7.5% death rate.
Mm-hmm.
We're at 0.03.
Mm-hmm.
And most of those were due to other conditions,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps enhanced or exacerbated by the virus. At the end of the day, it was no different than the 2010 flu that we had in 2010, and much less than the 68 flu
Right.
during Woodstock. Nobody panicked, but our government went out and instilled fear right off the bat.
Right.
And that's what created the problem. And then the media hyped it. Well, the media did it. It wasn't the government didn't instill the fear. It was the media, and then the some of the government went right along with it.
Right. I couldn't agree with you more, and I could go on probably for days about that situation, but I couldn't agree more about it.
But we don't want anybody to die of a virus or anything else. We don't want anybody
No.
to die of anything, ever.
No.
But the fact of the matter is, none of us are going to make it out of this world alive.
You're right. You're right.
So,
But, I mean, I think it's great that vaccines are developed and that we can offer those to people. I'm definitely not against anyone getting a vaccine. I personally myself am not getting a vaccine. I personally don't feel that there's been enough trials and studies on it. I just don't feel like it's safe for me.
mm-hmm.
But I would not discourage anyone else who wants to get it. I would say do
Good
your
choice.
research and make your own decision. And if the government is providing that, well, and you feel you want it, well, then go get it. I think we need to stick to providing it for the people here in Amarillo first and foremost. And then if we have extra services that are passed down to us from a state or federal level as far as vaccines are concerned, I think that we could also provide to the surrounding areas, but not what we're doing right now. Right now, we are providing them for people from Mexico, Guatemala. I mean, all these different countries people are flying in. 300 people a day are flying into our city to get a vaccine. When we put people here on hold, we didn't allow the teachers to get them first, our first responders. We didn't allow all of that first. We allowed all of these people from other countries to come in, stay in our hotels, All of our hotels got paid government money for them to stay here for I don't know how long. I don't know if it was overnight or if it was 3 weeks until they got their second vaccine. But that's something I'm looking into because I don't think it was fair. I don't think it was right. I mean,
well, they didn't have the vaccines in their country?
I don't know, but to me it seems more it seems like the smarter decision to send those vaccines over there to be administered in their
Be
own
a little
country.
easier to ship the yeah.
You know.
I mean,
So I don't
FedEx could handle that for about $20.
Mhm. So I don't know. I don't know why it was done this way, but there's clearly another agenda because that makes zero sense to pay all of that money to fly all of those people here to get a vaccine when we could have easily just sent it over there. Instead, I don't know. Are they leaving? Are they staying here? Do we have illegals running around our city right now? I don't know. It's a concern. When I talk to TSA and they can't give me answers as to the tracking of each of these individuals that's coming in, I'm concerned. And then I'm seeing the police. I'm not saying these two are related, but I see things on Facebook. Like there's the man that they found on the boulevard, and he didn't speak any language that they spoke here. It was like Korean or something like that, and no one could understand what he was saying. There was a big language barrier, and he was lost and confused. And he said, "I'm just here visiting," I guess is whatever they were able to determine that he was saying. I mean, I don't know if the two situations are related. All I'm saying is, it's concerning. It's concerning with people coming from outside. They haven't been tested for COVID-19. We had the issue with the meat plants and everything else, taking on all of that to make our numbers higher intentionally so that we could get the federal funds. Then you have our current mayor going and sending an email to the city manager saying, is there any way that we can skirt around this and use these COVID-19 funds to build a civic center? I'm just thinking to myself, my goodness, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if this could get worse, mutate, whatever the situation may be. And you're over here trying to spend COVID-19 funds to build a civic center. We obviously don't have that big of a COVID problem here if you want to use those funds for something other than COVID-related items. We didn't take care of our firefighters. We didn't take care of our police officers, which we could have done with that money. We spent it downtown buying $10 million worth of abandoned, beat-down warehouses. So, if it was me, I would have done it completely differently. I would have made sure that health and public safety were a number one priority. I mean, it even goes all the way up to the national level. All these bills they're passing, these CARES, HEROES, all these different things. I mean, you know just as well as I do, looking at all of those bills, hardly any of that money was designated for COVID-19 related expenses. It was all this ridiculous stuff that had nothing to do with COVID. And now we're in trillions of debt.
About to cover up and bail out incompetence, which is what we need. We need competence in government.
Mm-hmm. Common sense, too.
Well, do you have a website that people can go to find out more about you?
I do. It's www.claudettesmithformayor.com. I also have a Facebook, Claudette Smith for Mayor on Facebook, and I have an Instagram. And so if you want to learn more about me, just visit my website. I also, my phone number should also be somewhere, either on my Facebook or my website. And you're welcome to text me anytime, call me, leave a message so that I know that it wasn't a telemarketer calling about my extended car warranty.
Yeah.
And I will be happy to give anyone a call back.
So you get those calls too?
Oh, every day, every single day.
Maybe we can do something about that.
Well, I thought we did, but that turned into nothing. So here we are.
Well, Claudette, I really appreciate you coming by and visiting with us today, and good luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. I mean, it means a lot that you're here expending your time trying to get the voters to come out and be engaged and realize how important it is. I mean, and it is very important. Like I said, if I took any message back from President Trump, it was go back and take back your local governments, because it all starts here locally.
Yeah, and I think people are starting to wake up to that. So
I hope so.
I became county chair in 2017, I guess, when Cruz was running.
Mm-hmm.
And we turned Potter County. We went 44. We're the only county in the state that went positive for Republicans, and we did it by 44 points.
That's great.
So I think I hold the world record. But it's not that hard to engage the voters. Mm-hmm. They're starved for information, but neither party wants to engage them and inform them.
Right.
And to me, what I'm trying to show is that we can do it locally and really take the money out of politics.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the local parties ought to be doing this in every county.
Right.
And competent candidates then can run for office and not have to go begging for money.
Right.
You shouldn't need any money to run for political office.
I know, we were
Or
just
very
talking
little.
about that. Last night we were talking about that, and we were just, someone said, it's just crazy the astronomical amount that some of these candidates, mainly my opponent, gets or raises to run for this. It doesn't cost near that much. And sometimes people see that and they're like, well, she must be the better candidate because she raised $100,000. Realistically, I haven't done the numbers, but in my opinion, it probably shouldn't take more than $10,000 or $20,000 for a local elected official to get elected here. That's about the amount of money it should take.
Now, it costs me to get it out to the voters, but it's not cost prohibitive, and it's certainly worth the results that we get. But what I'm trying to do is treat everybody the same, when I get them all finished, then we'll put them on our website, send a link out to all the voters that we have contact info on, and they have an opportunity to look and get to know who their school board candidates, their AC Board of Regents, and why those are important. And the city council, the mayor, they can get to know each candidate, and then they can make an informed decision.
Right.
You may appeal to some. Michael may appeal to some. Michael Hunt, Carl Karras may appeal to some, and Ginger Nelson may appeal to others. So it's whatever people want. They need to make the decision,
Right.
but they need to be informed, and
Absolutely.
they need to vote.
That's why I think it's great that you're doing this, because not everybody can get out to all of the meet and greets and all the candidate forums and things going on. Sometimes, more often than not, a lot of people don't even know that those things are occurring. So I think this is great, and especially during a time like this when a lot of people don't want to get out of their house for whatever reason or another.
Well, and people are busy; they don't have time to go.
Oh yeah.
But they can they can watch these in the evening at home instead of whatever else they do if they want to.
Right, and I think it's
So,
great.
and we're not
Thank you.
forcing them; we're just giving them the opportunity
Right.
to choose, and I
Right.
think that's what it's all about. We have a choice. So,
Absolutely.
thanks again for coming by.
Thank you for having me.